What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video, and today I'm going to be talking about the recent The Batman that just dropped in theaters. I just got back from the movie theaters right now, and I kind of wanted to give my own personal thoughts on it, so I'll cover characters, the plot, everything in this specific video. So if you want to skip to something like a specific topic in the video, I'll leave links down here on the bottom of your screen and in the description below. So I guess with that said, let's begin. Okay, first, I want to say this. Very solid film. Now with that said, while it is a solid film, I cannot put it as like better than The Dark Knight. You know, I was seeing some articles from people who were saying like, this is better than Dark Knight, or it's just as good, or The Dark Knight doesn't stand a chance. You know, I was seeing like articles like that. And I have to say, I disagree with that completely. It's a good Batman movie, but I think it's somewhere like along the lines of like Batman Begins, Dark Knight Rises. It doesn't reach Dark Knight in my opinion. And that's not necessarily anyone's fault. I think it's just like the story itself doesn't really hit you like The Dark Knight does. I guess from like a certain perspective, I may understand why someone does feel that way. But for me, I just don't. Like, I think it was just a very fine, you know, passable Batman movie. I was talking to a buddy of mine that I went to go see the movie with, and we were kind of talking about how like the different Batmans through we were like in high school and then out of high school and like now. And there's a whole bunch of different type of Batmans we saw. So there was the more realistic take with Dark Knight. Of course, when we were kids, there was the more, you know, dark, but also a little bit like comic booky a version of like Michael Keaton. And of course, you know, George Clooney, you know what I mean? Val Kilmer. We don't really talk about those ones very much. But as far as the Batman like movies go, they're all so different when you really think about it. And The Dark Knight for me is my personal favorite Batman movie still. But I do think that if I was going to give who is my favorite like Batman actor, I would probably pick, honestly, I know I'm gonna get some flack for this, but I'd say Ben Affleck. I think he's so far my favorite Batman. And I think mostly because I just like the over-the-top comic book part of his aesthetic. So not only do I like him as, I think he's a great Bruce Wayne, and he's an like okay, I guess you could say, Batman, but it's the combination of both those characters together, as well as the stories being told that he's in. I think overall that's why I really like that Batman more. Now with that said, I do understand if you think I'm full of crap and you think that's the worst Batman. I 100% understand that. But we're not talking about Ben Affleck right now. We are talking about Robert Pattinson. How good was he? Was he the Batman we all wanted him to be? And I say, yeah, I think for right now, he's a decent Batman. They left it kind of open more where like he's still learning the ropes. You know, he's still a young Batman, which is pretty interesting to see compared to, you know, the Batman we saw in Dawn of Justice and the Justice League. He was more of an old and grizzled Batman. So it's cool to see these two different approaches to the character. So Robert Pattinson's Bruce Wayne is like a different Bruce Wayne we've never seen before. He's more Batman than he is Bruce Wayne, and I actually like that dynamic. He definitely hasn't been able to figure out how how to pull off like the fake perspective of his character, if you know what I mean. Like how I gotta say it, like he is naturally more depressed like Batman actually is, and then eventually I think in the second film we'll see that he has developed this alter ego that is, you know, the fake version, which is the Bruce Wayne everyone knows, but that's not actually who Bruce Wayne is. So I think we're going to see more of that in like the sequel, but they definitely mention a big Batman character that I'm not going to go into too much specifics on that. But let's just say they definitely have a sequel planned. So let's just see if it's as good as this movie or even better. I hope it's not worse. Actually, let's just jump into the story and then I'll go to the characters and stuff like that. For the story, I think it was very solid. It was much more of a detective Batman, like I mentioned. This is a Batman who is less in-your-face punchy, which he can still do. He's still good at that. Batman should be. That's usually Batman's thing. He's good at that. But this Batman is like a detective. Detective first, then he's a vigilante. So I think that's an interesting way to take the character, because before it was always vigilante, superhero. Well, I shouldn't say superhero, but vigilante hero. Some would call him anti-hero, whatever. And then he was also good at detective work, where this one is much more of a detective who can beat people up. And I think that's a very interesting take to take from Batman, because that was like Batman's initial premise, what he was originally supposed to be. So that's really cool. So the story is more of a detective noir film, which I think works really well with the Batman character. I was surprised how well. I was actually intrigued. I do think that some of the twists and turns, they might throw a little too many into there, but I get it. It's like a detective movie, you know. It is a Batman movie, but it's more of a detective movie before a Batman movie. So I think that was fine the way it was. I will say this, I actually really like this movie until like the last 20 minutes. I'm not gonna go into spoilers, but I'm just gonna say that's when the movie changed to something else. It was no longer this detective, realistic take, I guess you could say, on the Batman. And it turned into something that was much more, I don't know if I'd say Marvel-esque, but much more superhero-esque. And I guess that's fine, but it definitely didn't have that tone. Like they led this realistic tone the majority of the movie, and then the last 20 minutes is like, it's a comic book, and it's weird. I'm not against it, but it is something that kind of throws you off. So that was one of those things that like I said, kind of threw me off a little bit. Now the thing I instantly said when we finished the movie, I leaned back in my seat and my buddy was like, how'd you like it? And I said to him, I was like, I feel like this was supposed to be the script for The Dark Knight 4. Like, this was a script that was in limbo for a long time. Like maybe they had a script plan for The Dark Knight 4 if Nolan wanted to return for it, but he didn't want to. So this script got like put into a desk somewhere. And then when they were coming up with the concept of making a new Batman, they pulled it out of that desk. They changed some things here and there. They got Pattinson on board, and they got like a new director on board to kind of, you know, twist some stuff. And then that script became this. It feels like The Dark Knight 4. And that's not a bad thing, but I do think it's one of those things like every Batman kind of has like their own feel. And this is definitely down the road of The Dark Knight, which is cool because like I said, The Dark Knight is the best trilogy. So while I like Ben Affleck the most as Batman, Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy is the best Batman movie. So this movie was definitely down my aisle, but I do think that maybe it could have had a little bit more of its own feel. And that kind of connects into like what I mentioned about it being more of a detective movie. In a way, yes, it does have its own feel, but it definitely is a Dark Knight movie. If you love the Dark Knight like trilogy, you're gonna like this movie. I don't think you're gonna hate this movie. I think you might either find it like enjoyable, you might love it. But I think if you are a fan of the Dark Knight trilogy, especially like, I'd even compare this to like Batman Begins in a way. If you like that type of movie, you're gonna like this. It is one of those things though that makes you wonder, like, if you were expecting, you know, a Ben Affleck Batman movie, you're gonna be disappointed because that's not what they're going for here. This isn't a comic book movie. This is a more realistic noir detective movie. I had a couple older folks in the theater when I was walking out. The grandfather said to the grandmother, like, oh, how'd you like the movie? And she's like, well, I was sleeping for most of it, so I don't know. Now that could either be, of course, old people being old people, or, you know, that could just be that the movie is slow in a lot of places. And it is. There was only one scene where I think the scene went a little too long. I'm not going to go into spoilers about that. Maybe one day I'll do a full review on this movie when it comes out like on 4K Blu-ray or something like that. But there are some scenes that kind of slow down a little too much for my liking. And that's one of the things about the pacing I would say. Like, you start at like this slow pace, and then all of a sudden you're in this action scene and you're back to like a slow scene. Action scene, slow scene. And it kind of like does that for a little bit throughout the middle of the film. And it's a little jarring, and I understand why that would throw people off. It kind of threw me off a little bit, but I'm not like, I don't hate it. I kept up with the story, you know. It gets a little bit complex here and there. It has like the contrived movie plot where like whenever someone's a detective in a movie and they go, they could look at like the word, like one letter on a wall, it would say P, and like, P, you pee in a toilet. The toilet is made by Whirlpool. Whirlpool is a hole in the water that makes a tornado. A tornado sucks up circuses when they go through. Circuses hire clowns. Clown's a Joker! It's stuff like that. Of course, it's not that bad, but there are like a couple moments where I'm like, I get it. You're the world's greatest detective. I get what they're going with this. but there's no way you knew that was there. Like, come on. Come on. So that kind of throws you off a little bit. But I mean, like, overall, it was a solid film. I like the story. It wasn't as good as The Dark Knight. I see people who were posting about that, like I mentioned in the beginning of this video. If you were thinking it was better than The Dark Knight, it's not. People who say it is, they're just wrong. That's just how it is. But it's still good. Like, it's still capable. I would put it somewhere along the lines of Batman Begins and Dark Knight Rises. It's along that line, you know. With The Dark Knight's all the way up here, and then of course those movies are a little bit low it. Not bad, just kind of like good. Like, it's good. Like, it's a good movie, but it's not The Dark Knight. So in conclusion, all the characters are good. All the actors are great. The dialogue is solid. Robert Pattinson does a great job as Batman. I'm excited to see what he's going to do in the future, especially when he has more time to kind of get deeper into the character and to explore the idea of actually finding the duology between Batman and Bruce Wayne, which I think he's kind of, that's the whole reason for this movie, was like, he doesn't know the difference yet, so he's going to figure that out probably by the next time we see him in the second one. The story is solid. There are a couple hiccups here and there, but I think overall it's a very solid film. And like I said, if you loved the Dark Knight series, or at least if you liked it, you're gonna like this one too. This is right along that alley, and you'll be happy for it. Oh, and like I mentioned, you know, about the Dark Knight trilogy, this is the Dark Knight 4. If you're waiting for the Dark Knight 4, this is the Dark Knight 4. Not really, but it's the spiritual successor to the Dark Knight, so you should be happy for that. Okay, so that is my brief review on the Batman. How did you guys like it? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Let me know in the comments below. Was I wrong with my opinions, or was I right? Please consider liking, subscribing, and turn notifications for more videos. If you guys want to be able to save more money on Blu-rays and 4K Blu-rays, go check the Facebook group in the description below. We have a really solid squad over there who share a bunch of cool deals and stuff, so if you want to catch those, definitely join up. So thanks again for watching, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.